Welcome to Healthy Conversations, sharing the knowledge, experience, stories, and the wisdom of herbalists and other natural healers, with your host, Stephen Horn. Today's guest, KP Kaltza. Hi, welcome to Healthy Conversations. I have as my guest today, KP Kaltza, and I never try to pronounce your name exactly the way it is. Kartapork Singh Khalsa, is that
Perfect?
close?
Perfect.
Oh, good. KP and I are both have been associated with the American Herbalist Guild, and when I was president, he was on the board, and later he became president. So we're both past presidents of the American Herbalist Guild, and we're going to talk today a little bit about how to figure out how to get good information about herbs on the internet. Because when I attended a class that you were teaching, you mentioned about the problem of bad information on the internet, and I've seen that too. So why don't you address the idea of how do you evaluate the information you're looking at when you're searching for information about herbs?
Oh, Stephen, this is an almost impossible question. I don't know if it's possible to even ever do that. And we could talk about a few things. And so one would be to look at the source of the information, the person who's writing or gathering the information, what kind of record or reputation they have. So if it's somebody that other people respect, that's good. There's 1,000 blogs on the internet or 1,000,000 blogs, and they all post and repost the same information. So when someone gets some goofy idea, it's almost never validated with any other traditional or scientific perspective, or even asking people who have a lot of clinical experience what's going on. It just gets posted naked and then reposted 1,000 times. And the phenomenon of, if you hear it enough, it must be true, happens. And then everybody thinks that information is good information when it never was. So looking for the reputation of the people who post it. Also, are these people clinicians rather than theorists or scientists? There's a lot of information on the internet about herbs that's been provided by people in the research community or the medical community who have a different perspective about herbal medicine. And bottom line typically is that we don't need herbs, so why risk it? So we hear a
Right.
lot of scare stories about herbs. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed that a lot of stuff is either very medical and very kind of like, don't use herbs, they're not worth it, they're not that effective. And the other stuff is often just hyping to sell something. And so one of the things I'm always suspicious is the person posting just to sell products, or are they, basing it, like you say, on that they're clinical herbalists, have experience, they've worked with the plants, and they've also studied. I personally prefer to get my information from books. Uh, I don't. I will look stuff up on the internet, but I will often look at multiple sources trying to figure out of different perspectives, and especially look at some of the places where you can get some access to some of the more traditional literature. What are some of the things that you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that you and I are on the internet all day long, and we know how to slice and dice this information, and we probably go back to some of the same sources over and over that we found to be reliable. So if it plays out clinically, then that's great. But if it's just some theory, or again exaggerated warnings, or some medical perspective, one of the things we see a lot is information about constituents. That's active chemicals in herbs, and assuming that an herb works because of some particular constituent. Any given plant has maybe 10,000 different constituents. Of that, maybe 100 are active. Of that, maybe 10 are important. But you have 10 important constituents all working together. They go down different metabolic pathways. They work at different speeds. They're detoxified from the body in different ways, and it gives a multi-phased approach to how these things are going to work, meaning that herbal medicine is much less likely to blow out one metabolic pathway like a drug does. So these constituents, it's interesting information, and we might find that some of those things, like, let's say, berberine that comes from herbs like golden seal, might be valuable clinically. But most of the time, it's some experiment that a graduate student performed over the weekend because they needed to publish something, and they extracted a constituent, gave it to a rat, something happened, and they conclude that they make their conclusion. One great example is ginger. Ginger is a hot herb. It promotes circulation, increases heat in the body. It's essentially pro-inflammatory, or traditionally we would say a heating herb. But there are anti-inflammatory constituents in ginger that if you extract them from the matrix, give them to a rat, they will be anti-inflammatory. But overall, ginger is heating or pro-inflammatory. So we have to just distinguish that difference, the difference between whole herbs and traditional use, and then this modern perspective.
Yeah, well, I tell people one of the reasons why I'm an herbalist is because I have a lot more faith in hundreds or maybe thousands of years of human experience that's cumulatively been collected using the whole plant than I do maybe on a short study that was done for 3 or 4 weeks, right? On a constituent or an herb, because I think that that we look at the cumulative experience. Can I ask you just quickly, what are some of your favorite sources to get good information on herbs? Authors, people, websites, whatever.
Yeah, well, many of our close colleagues that you and I know very well have written books and have websites. So we have somebody like Michael Tierra, Christopher Hobbs, David Winston, Donnie Yance, trying to think of the guy in Australia, Kerry, whatever his name is.
Carrie Bone.
Kerry Bone, right, the well-known chemist. So uh, it's a tight-knit group of professional clinical herbalists in North America. Most of us know each other and we refer to each other. So if you start to dig into some of the information from one of us, Stephen will reference me, I'll reference him, we'll reference Winston, Tierra, whatever. And we find that people that have clinical experience end up having very similar experiences. I mean, the herbs work in a certain way, and everybody eventually figures that out. And the kinds of doses that we use and our approaches tend to be remarkably similar if you're actually treating real people. If you're theorizing and speculating, then you have ideas all over the place. And, we see a long list of, for stomach ache, a list of 100 herbs in alphabetical order. That doesn't help us.
No, it
So,
doesn't. In fact,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, no, I think you're right. The people who I trust the most are people who I see as actually having used herbs with people, having clinical experience, and actually applying herbs with people who need help. And they're the ones whose information I am much more interested in than scientific theories about constituents or blah, 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 or, a study done on the fact that cinnamon lowers blood sugar. But yeah, cinnamon can help lower blood sugar, but cinnamon is astringent, it's warming, whereas nopal also helps to lower blood sugar, but it's mucilaginous and cooling. So clinical herbalists understand that there's a little more to this than just a particular little narrow thing that this herb may have been shown to do in a study, and that you have to have a deeper understanding of this to get the right information.
Yeah, all true.
Yeah. Well, thank you for discussing this with me. And I would encourage people, when you're looking at stuff on the internet, not to just gullibly believe everything. I don't, and I've been wrong at times. I've had to be corrected by colleagues about a mistake I made. So always be open to looking for the best information that's out there, and use your critical power of thinking when you're looking for information, especially on the internet. Thanks for joining me, KP. If you'd like to learn more, KP has a wonderful school, the International Integrative Education Institute, right? And the link to that is below.
Right.
We're teaching an aromatherapy class together, but he has some other really wonderful courses on his website. So check that out in the links below. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Glad to see everybody.
Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to catch future episodes of Healthy Conversations. Help us educate others by sharing this video, and please feel free to share your own thoughts, comments, and questions below. To learn more, check out the links below.